On today's show, what to expect from Alex Ovechkin for the remainder of the season. Is the Tom Wilson that we're seeing this year, is this the best version of Tom Wilson? I'll discuss next on this edition of Locked On Capitals.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. And as always, I want to thank all of you for making Locked On Capitals your first listen of the day. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about Tom Wilson. And is the Tom Wilson that we're seeing out on the ice this season the best version of Wilson we have seen thus far? I think that we have seen a maturation, a maturity in his game where he is not the guy that we saw when he first entered the league, where he felt like he needed to drop the gloves at a moment's notice, that he realizes that he is best served being out on the ice instead of the penalty box. I'll talk about that a bit later. I'll talk about Alex Ovechkin and his thoughts on Matvei Michkov. But just to get it going here, talking about Alex Ovechkin and what to expect from him for the remainder of the season, and ultimately what is different about this year's Alex Ovechkin versus last season. That's what we'll dig into, and it's a bit interesting as we recollect back to last season. Ovi got off to his slowest start in the goal-scoring department in his entire career. So what ultimately has changed this season? He's faced a lot of adversity. He had that lower leg injury, that fracture to his fibula from Jack McBain, that there was a lot of questions surrounding him about what kind of Ovi were we going to see on the ice when he made his return. And a different thing from Ovechkin, if you want to contrast last season during the All-Star break, where he went to Dubai to ride around a camel to kind of relax and spend time with his family. He's not doing that this season. What's changed? Let's dig into what the Great Eight is up to during this Four Nations face-off break. With the ongoing Four Nations break in the NHL, Ovi is taking full advantage of this pause in the action to gear up for the rest of the season. What do we always hear? Father Time is undefeated. What do we know? He is 39 years old, and there's a lot of people asking, what kind of Ovechkin were we going to see this year? You hear like the Tom Brady references, what kind of Brady was there going to be? Father Time is undefeated. That Alex Ovechkin, if you can believe it, is aging like a fine wine. We have not seen a dip in production. What we've seen from him is some of the best hockey that we have ever seen him play. And this is all with quite a lot on his mind. You got to think that chasing down Wayne Gretzky, trying to get this Capitals team to win another Stanley Cup before he retires, quite something. Now, Ovechkin, like I talked about, 39, is still proving he's got plenty left in the tank, has headed down to Miami with his family. Like I spoke about in a previous podcast, that he has an apartment down in Miami where he likes to spend time on the beach and relax. An apartment. I think that's kind of interesting. I'm guessing it's probably a studio apartment or something like that. I kid, of course. I'm sure it's better than most of all of our homes. But in any event, he's down in Miami soaking up some rays, and he said he's going to relax and then hit it hard. He's set up a small training camp there, and in a recent interview, he shared his plans to stay active during the break. This was an exclusive interview with RG's Sergei Demidov, where he spoke about what Ovechkin is up to during this break here. So it's interesting to see that he is really trying to, be mindful that he needs a break, but also that he wants to spend some of this time trying to get better, to try to surpass Wayne Gretzky, to not falter, to hit the ground running once the Capitals resume play. He mentioned, I flew to Miami with my wife and children, and I will have a small training camp set up, quote unquote, showcasing his dedication. There's a bit of a mystery out there that he is going to be training with a former NHLer, and ultimately who that might be, a mystery training partner. Ovi has lined up a training partner, though he's keeping the identity under wraps for now. Many people could speculate about ultimately who that is. But in any event, I'm sure it's a qualified person that is going to help take Ovi to the next level. We can expect some updates on social media, and I'm curious to see what he's working with. We saw those videos from before where he was, I think it was last summer, wasn't it, where he was playing volleyball with a pot belly. Some people speculated that was Photoshop because his wife was quick to post a picture of him wearing some shorts and looking rather fit. So in any event, he is going to be the greatest goal scorer of all time. So there is a lot that people want to know about him. That there is, I bet you in Miami that there's people that are around every corner trying to get a picture of him to see what he's up to. But it's always fun when he surprises us with his training routine. But it is, like I said, going to be a balance of hard work and relaxation. I think that the tendency oftentimes is like, I'm going to work. But then all of a sudden you're back into it and you didn't take any time to take a moment to rest. This is a rare opportunity that the NHLers have not had an opportunity for quite some time, is to take an extended break during the season. You take a look at the All-Star break, which is shorter, that this is a unique position for the Capitals, but more specifically, Alex Ovechkin to be 100% once play resumes. Now, aside from honing his skills, Ovechkin is also mindful of the importance of relaxation. He reminisced about his last All-Star break where he had a memorable time riding camels in Dubai. Again, I don't think that he needs that to go overseas. I don't think he feels this need to do anything extravagant. I think that he's in a good headspace. He's with his family. He's with his trainer in Miami, that they don't want to get too crazy. They don't want to be jet setting all over the world. They want to stay here in the United States and work on the game of hockey that he has mastered, and ultimately what at some point here will pass the Wayne Gretzky rather. Now, this season has been remarkable for him as he's tallied at 26 goals and 17 assists, 43 points in just 39 games, which is incredible considering he missed a few weeks with that broken leg. Ovi did emphasize the balance of hard work and rest, saying, I'll also rest. You need to rest well and work hard, unquote. He plans to take a few days for recovery before getting back into training and ramping up with the remainder of the season. Ultimately, I think it's the right idea. Stay here, work on it. Don't waste your time, your effort, your energy, jet setting all over the globe. Just get here, concentrate on getting some rest in, and then hitting it hard. Let's not forget he's only 16 goals away from breaking Wayne Gretzky's all-time goal record. April 10th, circle it on your calendars. It's against Carolina. That is when many people speculate. The projections are that he is going to pass Gretzky. Quite a moment. If he continues up on this scoring pace, we could see him surpass that, like I said, in April. It's an exciting time to be a Capitals fan, if you really think about it, that we've seen seasons in the past where Alex Ovechkin has done great things, but nothing as great, of course, as catching and passing the great one, Wayne Gretzky. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll hear Alex Ovechkin's thoughts on a young and rising star known as Matvei Michkov, the guy that's a bit of a showboat, likes to go for the Michigan lacrosse-style goal where they go behind the net where it's on the blade of the stick and tip it over. What's Alex Ovechkin's thoughts on all of that? I'll discuss next. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they've packed it with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep feeling fuller all day. Personally, if you're asking me, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days, whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost. They're always my go-to snack. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. Get cracking and get snacking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can find me over on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. So in this next segment here, we're going to talk about Alex Ovechkin and a young rising star on the Philadelphia Flyers organization, the Philadelphia Flyers, and a young star that I think to a certain extent reminds Alex Ovechkin of himself when he was a younger player in the league. What do we know about Michkov? He has a lot of great talent, a good goal scorer, has some room for improvement, but a bit of a showboat. He is the guy that likes to try to do the Michigan-style goal, kind of that lacrosse goal, they call it, where they get it on the blade of the stick and tip it over, much to the chagrin of his head coach, John Tortorella. And Alex Ovechkin himself thinks that he needs to tone it a bit back. Now, that's interesting, coming from Ovechkin, if you remember in his youth, where the hockey stick on fire and him doing all those kind of things. So is this just Alex Ovechkin being old and curmudgeonly, or does he have some facts or some real solid beliefs behind the whole thing? Let's just before the break for the Four Nations face-off. You take a look at it, that game was some time ago already. But what are some of the things that really stood out? Was the night of Michkov really popped off the page. Some people thought that Michkov would be a good capital. I entertained that thought. I talked about it on this podcast before, but the young sensation recorded 2 goals and came close to securing his first ever hat trick with an incredible Michigan-style shot. But the good thing is that the Capitals, well, they were well prepared for it, and it did not find the back of the net. Now, my thoughts on that whole Michigan-style shot is I kind of have the thought process as well, is that it should be, let's just rely on your skills. Let's not try any trickery. Now, just take it that that is my opinion. That is nothing other than that. Maybe me being a bit old and curmudgeonly as well, as I think that if you score goals, just score them the way that most people do, wrist shots, one-timers, these kind of things. Don't try to do anything that, I just think that it's kind of more of a trick play than a legit goal scorer. Now, that's not true. They are legit goals, but I think that I can see where Alex Ovechkin is coming from. Head coach John Tortorella has even stopped trying to convince him to refrain from using it. And I think that John Tortorella is in an interesting position where he has a young, great talent on the team, and he's telling him not to do it. And if he doesn't listen, what is he going to do? Is he going to put him in the doghouse and not play him? I think that that would be hard to explain to Flyers fans. I think that that would be a hard time to explain to the general manager that, hey, guy, what's going on there? Well, why is not Michkov in the lineup? Well, I have him out of the lineup because he's doing that darn Michigan-style goal. But it is a unique position. But to be fair here, Michkov has spent some time in John Tortorella's doghouse just based on some questionable play on the ice this season. But one of the things that's evident about trying to pull off that shot is I think it's a bit cocky. I think that to a certain extent, I think it shows confidence. So I can see kind of a mixed bag in there, that I think that to even try to attempt to pull off a shot like that, it does speak of the confidence that you have, a little bit of swagger, but maybe a little bit of youthful foolishness as well. But talking about his season as a whole, despite some struggles lately where he's notched just 9 goals or 9 points rather in 22 games since the holiday break, Michkov is still impressively third in rookie scoring overall. That's what I'm talking about. That sometimes when we talk about the young talent in the NHL, it's Bedard, it's Celebrini, that sometimes Michkov is not lumped in that equation. And I think that at some point he is going to be next level for the Flyers. Still ultimately a young talent on that team, but kind of a fun player to watch. And it's interesting to see Alex Ovechkin's thoughts or hear his thoughts, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Currently, he sits at 36 points, 16 goals, and 20 assists in 55 games, trailing only Montreal's Lane Hudson and San Jose's Macklin Celebrini. So, I think that most NHL fans and Capitals fans are familiar with Michkov just because there was a lot of rumblings about if the Capitals should be all in on him at the draft. But Alex Ovechkin, like I said, was a bit of a showboat in his younger day. It's worth mentioning that the Capitals legend Ovechkin, who is almost double Michkov's age, had some kind words for the rookie after their matchup. Ovi praised Michkov's talent, but playfully suggested he could ease up on the showboating just a bit. Again, I think that maybe Ovechkin sees a bit of Michkov, a younger Ovechkin, if you will, that he has the advantage of experience, maturity, 39 years old, been in the league for quite some time, that maybe he looks back on some of that showboating from his youth and cringes a little bit like, well, maybe that was a little bit too much. But Michkov is a young man, and I say let him have fun at the end of the day, regardless of my thoughts if those goals are legit or not. And I think they should be legit. It's not something that we want to see out on the ice. Some people could say, well, deflections, that's kind of trickery as well. So I guess you could go down certain rabbit holes, but all things considered, a fun, young, rising star to watch. In his own reflections, Ovechkin also offered some wisdom to Ivan Demidov, Montreal's top prospect, encouraging him to put in hard work rather than focus on flashy plays. He emphasized, quote, work and everything will be fine. The most important thing is not showing off, because when you show off, it can come back to bite you in a big way, unquote. And I think that is sage advice from the great eight, that I think that maybe he's been guilty of that before, or you got to think he has witnessed it at some point or another, just watching players that get overly carried away and bad things happen. Think of the NFL, for example, where the guy starts celebrating, about 5 yards before the touchdown, and all of a sudden a guy just smacks him or strips the ball away from him. So I think that it's fun, and I think it's when just watching the game, it's fun to watch a player enjoy themselves. However, I think that you can get a bit carried away with it as well. But looking ahead as we gear up for the rematch between the Caps and the Flyers on March 20th at Cap One, it'll be interesting to see how Michkov takes Ovi's words to heart as he continues navigating the ups and downs of his rookie season. If you're asking me, I don't think he is going to change his style of play at all, or nor do I think he should. That Alex Ovechkin has his thoughts on how he should proceed. I have my thoughts on what I think should take place out on the ice. But at the end of the day, it is a young player in the league. Let him have fun. He's a young man, and I don't think that he should be adherent to Alex Ovechkin or John Tortorella saying, hey, you settle down out there, young man. Just let the kid have some fun at the end of the day. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about Tom Wilson. And ultimately this season, what we have seen is a better Tom Wilson. He is more mature. He's not dropping the gloves as much. He is putting up a lot of goals this season. Let's talk about the evolution and the maturation of number 43. I'll discuss straight ahead. Looking to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor makes eating easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle. Whether it's calorie smart, protein plus, or keto, plus Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfast, and grab and go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. And if you're a lot like me, if you have kids, you have a busy schedule, sometimes it's hard to set aside time to prepare a meal that ultimately you would like to prepare. With they're busy taking your kids to practice, work, all of those kind of things. Scratch one of the things of meal preparation off your list. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 off and use code LockedOnNHL50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code LockedOnNHL50 off at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. All right, in this next segment here, we are going to talk about Tom Wilson and the change that I have seen from him this season. Undoubtedly, if you've watched the Capitals this season, you have noticed that he hasn't dropped the mitts as often as we have seen in the past. And a lot of this, what I'm going to talk about, emanates from a podcast that I heard last summer with Mike Vogel called the Break the Ice podcast, and Tom Wilson was on there. And some of the things that he said is he doesn't feel the need to drop the mitts to every fourth line AHL call-up, that's trying to make a name for himself. He realizes that if he's challenged, he doesn't have to answer the bell every time, that he is best served out on the ice, helping his team contribute and win games. A novel thought at the end of the day isn't. But one thing is abundantly clear. He still has not lost the snarl in his game. He's just picking and choosing his battles a little bit more. So let's do that. Let's dive into that in this segment, talking about Tom Wilson. It's interesting to note that Wilson has only dropped the gloves twice so far this year. And according to him, that's a deliberate choice. Wilson's decision, it was a tough one to fight less. In a recent appearance on Sportsnet's After Hours, Wilson opened up about his decision to fight less this season. He was jokingly ribbed by his teammates, calling out that a few of them already have more PIM minutes than he does. And I think that Tom Wilson, he takes pride in being a tough guy, but I think as he gets older and he sees what lies ahead with his future with the Capitals, he realizes that is kind of a younger man's game, that I will stand up for my teammates and I will fight from time to time. But like I said, I'm best served trying to score goals. Wilson mentioned, quote, "I just want to be on the ice now," unquote. And it's hard to argue with that logic, that I think that it's important to have a tough guy in the team. And the Capitals have that in Duhaime, a bit of an enforcer. You take a look at Dylan McElrath, if he's in the lineup, that they do have the snarl if needed. Now, when you're sitting in the penalty box, you're not helping your team, especially with the way he can impact the game. Not the goon that a lot of people perceive him to be, putting up big goals this season. This season, Wilson is on pace for just 3 fights, and believe it or not, only 75 penalty minutes. Hit me up on Twitter at DanCaps218 or at LockedOnCaps, or of course on YouTube. Let me know your thoughts. Do you like this new Tom Wilson? Do you miss him dropping the mitts more, or do you like the Tom Wilson that's finding the back of the net with more regularity? For me, I like that he's scoring more goals. That's a significant decrease from his previous seasons. Now, he's usually the guy who racks up PIM minutes, never had a season with fewer than 78, and even if in years when he had limited games due to injury. that he always found the way. But if you recollect back when he was first in the league, he was oftentimes in the penalty box or suspended. That a lot of people questioned what kind of future Tom Wilson had in the National Hockey League. But he's been rewarded, increased ice time and offensive contributions. He's also playing a career high 1851 of ice time per game under head coach Spencer Carberry. That's huge. And I think Spencer Carberry's probably talked about him saying, hey, Tom, we want you to fight, but ultimately we know you have a knack for finding the back of the net. Why not lean into that strength? And that's huge for him. He's not just contributing defensively, but also stepped up offensively. He's on track for career high in goals and points, currently projected to hit 36 goals and 63 points this season. And let's not forget, he leads the team in power play goals, currently boasting 10, which is impressive compared to some of the other big names like Ovi, for example. So ultimately, I think it's about shifting team dynamics. What's also interesting is how often the team dynamic has shifted. Now, with the arrival of Brandon Duhaime, who stepped up to play on, kind of that enforcer role, Wilson can focus more on his game rather than always being the tough guy. And Duhaime, he does play with some edge, and historically, the Capitals have had guys that had edge. Think Garnet Hathaway. Think of players like that. Think about Erskine, these kind of guys that you do need the enforcer, but it seems like the enforcers are fading away in the NHL. If you're asking me, they still have a huge role as kind of the sheriff of your team, but I think what you're starting to see is a true evolution of what the younger players in the league are like. I was talking with a guy at work earlier about that. The young players coming up through the league right now have a skill set that I don't think the NHL has ever seen, especially the players that are coming up. Even look at the Capitals. Think about Leonard. Think about Crystal. Think about Cole Hudson, these kind of things I think that they're not focusing so much on being tough. They're more focused on having a high skill set. And I think that kind of feeds into Tom Wilson as well, about concentrating on finding the back of the net. Now, Wilson's still making an impact. Don't get me wrong. He still will fight. It's not like we took the fight out of him, but Wilson still feels the need to leave his mark from time to time. Like I say, answer the bell if he thinks one of his team or his players on the team is getting pushed around. He leads the Capitals with 156 hits, placing him 18th in the league. So still getting a lot of physicality in there, just not dropping the mitts. Plus, you take a look at it, memorable moments like when he made Utah forward Jack McBain answer for that dirty play against Ovechkin. Prime example. You're going to do something to Ovechkin. If Wilson's able to, he is going to make you pay. You're going to have to answer to me. And in that case, Jack McBain had to do the right thing. Now, noticeable achievements this year. Of course, who could forget his first ever Gordie Howe hat trick? He scored a goal and an assist and even threw down with Montreal's Josh Anderson after Anderson jumped him following a hit. Classic Wilson. Now, the interesting thing is it's hard to be a guy like Tom Wilson in the league, because I think that there are a lot of tough guys or a lot of alpha males that go, that guy likes to fight and he thinks he's tough. I think I'm tougher. That I think it's hard to not fall into that you have to kind of stand up and say, hey, I really am tough. But I think that with maturity, you're like, go ahead and think you're tough. I know who's tough. And if you really push me, I'll fight, but let me do what I need to do and score goals. As far as Wilson, though, he's finding that balance between being physical and being on the ice, contributing to the Capitals' success without spending too much time in the penalty box. Again, my takeaways on it, I like the new Tom Wilson this year, that he can be the tough guy, but he doesn't have to be the guy that drops the mitt every time another guy's chirping him and wants to fight. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.